I think the conversation has to start with a guy that I think a lot of us are expecting to come out and be a breakout player, and that is Lorenzo Styles.
Yeah, I mean, he's the player that I envision that if he is as good as we think he is and he hits near his ceiling, that he's the guy that can line up at all three different positions and he can affect the game in so many different ways. That gives you the flexibility to, if I want to put Braden Lindsay in a different spot, if I want to put, Lorenzo Styles as the W into the boundary and let him work out of there, he's the guy that I think unlocks every part of your passing offense because he can provide so many different combinations of wide receivers coming in. Michael Mayer, working into the more of a wide receiver role with a Lorenzo Styles. Like there's so many things that you can do with a Lorenzo Styles. I mean, he could be that RPO guy. He could work outside. He can be a route runner. The thing I love about Lorenzo, because I know we always get a question of who has more upside, Deion Colzie, Lorenzo Styles, like that's, that kind of that sophomore conversation. And I'm okay with people saying Deion Colzie, but I always come back to the fact that Lorenzo Styles can win in every single way. You want him to take the top off? He can do it. You want him to win after the catch? He can do it. You want him to win as a route runner? He can do it. So if he is as good as I think he can be, and he takes the step, Brian, and he becomes the best receiver, then I think he could be one of the best receivers in college football. Like, I think that he has that type of upside. I really do, because he's a player
this year. Are you talking about like this year? Are you talking about like this?
I think this year. I think this year. I do. I think that he has everything that you need.
Let me ask you this, Ryan, because I want to set you up to the answer you're about to make, because the thing I want to remind people is Ryan's the difference between I think our channel and other channels that cover teams, not Notre Dame teams, but other teams, is they kind of only know their team.
Sure.
And we try to not be that way. And Ryan, especially because he does run an NFL draft site, has watched a lot of the receivers. And we've had conversations about Mario Williams and Jordan Addison and Xavier Worthy and guys like that. So you've seen a lot of these guys. So let me lead you into that what you're about to say with more of a directive question. What is it about Lorenzo's game compared to some of those other guys that makes you think that he can go from, being that kind of player? Because, I mean, we've seen jumps like that, right? I mean, Lorenzo Styles caught 24 passes last year. That's 4 times more than what Will Fuller had and Golden Tate had when they were true freshmen. They only caught 6. Well, both of them broke out the next year and had 1,000-yard seasons, right? Equanimeous St. Brown went from 1 catch as a freshman in 2015 to over 50 catches, and I think it was like 961 yards as a sophomore, but he didn't play in a bowl game because they were terrible that year. So it's not exactly unheard of to see guys make jumps like that. So that part we can kind of negate. But I want to know from you specifically what you see from Lorenzo that makes you think he has the tools to become that type of player in regards to how he would compare to a Jordan Addison, right? A Xavier Worthy, some of the guys that we look at and view as, because Xavier Worthy's a sophomore as well, but he kind of broke out last year out of need, because there was no Kevin Austin and Michael Mayer to take touches. He had to be the guy for Texas last year. What is it that you see that makes you think he can be that player?
It is the all-around skill set that he has as a receiver. Like, I look at some guys, and you mentioned like Mario Williams, who is a similar player to like a Marvin Mims. That was his former teammate at Oklahoma. Great vertical deep threat type of players. But are they going to threaten every single part of the game? I think Lorenzo Styles can threaten every part. I really do believe that if it's a smaller corner, Lorenzo Styles can work the back shoulder and play some big football. I think that if it's a longer corner that doesn't change direction as well, then, hey, he can change direction. He can get in and out of his breaks. He can beat you as a route runner. If you're running the RPO game, he can win after the catch and do all that type of stuff too. For me, what I think he can be is I think he can be an all-around wide receiver, where he might not be the most dynamic deep threat in college football, but he can be good everywhere across. And for me, I always value the guys that can do more as receivers, guys that can affect the game at multi-levels, the guys that can create more separation in different ways. I don't think there's any reason that if Lorenzo Styles hits his upside, that he's a 1,000-yard receiver and he's viewed as one of the best receivers in college football. Am I predicting it? Yes, I am, actually. I was going to
own it. I love it. Own
it. I was going to give myself a second to backtrack there, but no, I'm calling it right now. Lorenzo Styles has been my breakout. I mean, as much as a breakout as you can for a guy that's expected to be that. I think he's going to be a really good football player. And I think if he hits a ceiling, he's a guy that just affects the game in so many different ways. So that's why I think that he can be in the conversation with the best receivers in college football this year.
Mario Williams is an interesting comparison. They were both freshmen last year. Mario Williams had better numbers total. He had 35 catches for 380 yards, 4 touchdowns. Lorenzo had 24 catches for 344 yards and 1 touchdown. The difference is Mario was part of the Oklahoma rotation from day one. I mean, so Lorenzo didn't really step into the rotation really until the USC game.
Yep.
And we could argue why that was, but he didn't really become a factor. The first 6 games of the year, he had 2 catches for 16 yards. He had a 2-yard catch against Toledo, and he had 1 catch coming off the bench when Joe Wilkins got hurt against Cincinnati. And then they did a ton of 12 personnel against Virginia Tech. But he jumps into the rotation, and in the last 7 games, he had three games with over 50 yards receiving. Mario Williams in the entire season, and he played in 12 games last year. So Lorenzo technically played in more games, but Lorenzo wasn't a part of the rotation. He just kind of would come in and do what they did with receiver backups for most of Brian Kelly's tenure when they were young, and just go out there and get snaps and block and don't actually get the football. But he had 1 game of over 50 yards the entire year. And his second highest game was 49 yards against Western Carolina. So, but you're seeing all these things, Mario Williams on the Biletnikoff watch list and all this stuff. Why? He had 35 catches for 380 yards in 12 games, right? Lorenzo Styles had basically, 22 catches for 328 yards, if I'm doing the math correctly, in 7 games, essentially, right? So it comes down to there's a perception, right? Like if Mario Williams would have transferred to Notre Dame this offseason, Notre Dame fans would be like, oh my gosh, we got Mario Williams.
I know.
But I would argue that Lorenzo Styles is the better football player. And we saw that on the field last year. And so the reason I'm saying this is to follow up on Ryan said, because that's part of the reason that we're not as concerned about the receiving core this year as a lot of people are, other than the only concern we have is just bodies.
Yes.
It's can they stay healthy? And then the second concern we have is if something happens to Lorenzo, then you get concerned.